Schizophrenia is defined as a long-term mental disorder of a type involving a breakdown in the relation between thought, emotion, and behavior. It leads to faulty perception, inappropriate actions and feelings, withdrawal from reality and personal relationships into fantasy and delusion, and a sense of mental fragmentation. Symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking, and more. The symptoms typically begin in a person's mid-20s, and it is believed that a combination of genetics, environment, and brain chemistry contribute to the development and onset of the disorder. Many times, people with a family history of schizophrenia are highly likely to develop the disorder, which is why it is important to take a genetic test and know if you carry the gene likely for risk of schizophrenia. About 1% of U.S. citizens have schizophrenia, and SNP media found that there can be around 20,000 casual SNPs that can impact risk for schizophrenia. With approximately 1% of the American adult population having this disorder, schizophrenia, based on the National Institute of Mental Health, is a chronic mental disorder that exerts major influence on a person's behavior, thoughts, and overall perception of reality. With features including hallucinations, delusions, and a spectrum of poor cognitive functions ranging from working memory and executive functioning, this condition persists as a disorder attributable to many factors. Inheritance of the gene is one common way this disorder is oriented. However, environmental causes influence it as well. Approximately 79% of schizophrenia occurs due to genetics, while the remaining 21% stems from environmental factors. Although one single gene is not the sole proprietor leading to the development of schizophrenia, scientific research has been conducted analyzing the connection between multiple genes and inheritance. It is understood that genetic and environmental factors are not isolated, but rather interact to increase the likelihood of development. An appearance of symptoms are common in early adulthood between the ages of 16 and 30, yet environmental factors can be traced through different periods of life, including early childhood with head injury and child abuse, to prenatal with maternal malnutrition and stress. Breaking down the synthesis of this disorder is useful with the analysis of genes. Many genes have been found that, when expressed, encode for protein products that lead to outcomes connected to schizophrenia. The genes SLC18A1 and CANNA1C gene have been traced linkage to the disorder.
In testing for schizophrenia, two specific SNPs that would need to be tested include RS2270641 and RS1006737. Both SNPs alleles predict schizophrenia. The SNP RS1006737 associates with the verbal fluency in individuals and affects the CACNA1C gene. This gene belongs to a family of genes that create calcium channels and affects the cell's ability to transmit electrical signals. This specific gene encodes the alpha-1 subunit of calcium channels and helps to mediate the flow of calcium ions in cells. It also affects the cell's ability to transmit electrical signals and involves the brain and heart cells. Possessing the alleles AA increased the risk of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder by 1.7 times. It makes sense that different alleles of this SNP associate with mental disorders such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, considering that the protein it encodes for is located, but not restricted to, in the brain. The other SNP that associates with schizophrenia is RS2271061. Different versions of this SNP may change the SLC18A1 gene, which encodes for the vesicular monoamine transporter, which deals with dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain, affecting brain cells. Having the GG alleles of this SNP also increases your chance of schizophrenia by 3.7 times. This SNP has the alleles TG, GG, and TT. Variations in dopamine and serotonin levels affect the individuals greatly in that their sense of reality and mental health are skewed.
The DISC1 gene has been revealed to have an association with whether people develop schizophrenia or not. A research study was done among some members of the Scottish population with a schizophrenia diagnosis to observe the results of the DISC1 gene in those individuals. It was found that 4 SNPs in the DISC1 gene were genotyped in this study: RS751229, a CT change in intron 1, RS3738401, a GA change in exon 2 causing an arginine glutamine substitution, RS1984895, a GA change in intron 9, and RS82161 C16 and 8C change in exon 11 causing a serine cysteine substitution. Two of the polymorphisms showed statistically significant associations with schizophrenia when analyzed by genotype or by allele frequency. The remaining SNPs RS1984895 and RS821616 showed no significant association. The research proved that not only one variation causes schizophrenia, but a combination of variations contributes to development. The variations in SNPs shown in the research indicate an increased risk for schizophrenia in anyone found with a lot of those same differences. Some individuals also find it empowering to get genetic tests to know their likelihood of developing the disorder so that they can make the proper and necessary decisions in the future.
One study conducted by the Center for Prevention and Evaluation discovered limitations of genetic testing for schizophrenia. This is a clinic for people ages 14 through 30 who are at high risk for psychosis. There were around 25 to 30 people at the clinic when the study was conducted. Out of these people, 17 young adults were chosen for the study, but only 15 young adults who were at high risk for psychosis scheduled and attended interviews regarding the pros and cons of getting a schizophrenia genetic test. The participants all expressed concerns regarding the science of the test. They're worried about validity, whether the test is truly accurate, issues with data interpretation, and if the sampling is done correctly. This study also proved that people who take a genetic test have a much higher risk of developing depression or becoming suicidal. SNPpedia even found that for SNP RS2270641, if one has the allele susceptible to developing schizophrenia, which is GG, they only have a 3.7 times higher risk of developing schizophrenia. This is a higher risk than the average individual, but it also still isn't a huge percentage, which could lead someone to not feel as prompted to take a genetic test. As far as ethical consideration, if one tested positive for a genetic disease, the same study previously discussed found many emotional and financial implications aside from the scientific ones. Emotionally, it was found that there can be problems with stigma, privacy, and psychological harm if someone tested positive for a genetic disease. The study even noted that the survey conducted found that many people fear that they would be treated differently, even by the government, if they were to test positive for a genetic test. Some individuals reported they would even feel obligated to tell an employer. It was found that testing positive would create constant feelings of anxiousness and worry because people would be pondering when they would develop the disorder. It would also cause people to worry more if they already had children or were planning to have a child, as they could pass the disorder hereditally. Specific feelings reported were feeling sad, feeling small, hopelessness, and more. There are also issues regarding medical treatment, as many people may not be able to afford it or may feel pressured to get treatment even if they do not want it. Though some participants found it empowering to know about their medical probabilities, negative effects both financially and emotionally were more often found.